December 31st, 2023. Sophie sat on the bed in her quiet room, a large mug of tea warming her hands. She had no interest in celebrating New Year's Eve. The parties, fireworks, and laughter outside reminded her of the loneliness she'd been trying to escape. Instead, she decided to embrace the solitude, curling up to watch an old movie on TV, the room dimly lit by the flickering screen. It was already close to 11 p.m. when she first heard it. A soft rustling sound coming from outside her window. She initially thought it was just the wind blowing, but no matter how she tried to shake off her fear, the sound remained there. Her heart began racing. She shook off the feeling by telling herself that maybe it was nothing more than the trees swaying from the snowstorm. However, when the rustling sounded like footsteps, her skin felt cold. She slowly stood up from the couch and tiptoed to the window, creaking the old floorboards under her feet. She looked through the curtains, scanning the yard. There was no one, only the white, empty expanse of snow under the glow of the streetlight. Feeling both foolish and unnerved, Sophie turned away from the window. As she did, she heard it, an unmistakable noise from the living room downstairs. It was soft at first, a quiet shuffling sound. But then it grew louder, like footsteps pacing back and forth in the living room below. Sophie froze. Her pulse quickened. She knew she was home alone. "Hello?" she called out, her voice trembling despite her best efforts. No response. The shuffling stopped. Sophie's heart pounded in her chest as she hurried to her bedroom door and locked it, returning to her bed. She sat on the edge of the bed, holding her breath, listening intently. Silence. Then, the unmistakable sound of humming, low, eerie, and almost melodic, floated up the stairs from the living room. It wasn't a song Sophie recognized. It sounded wrong. The humming continued, louder now, but something about it was unnerving, like it was coming from a place far deeper than the living room. She pulled the blankets around her, trying to convince herself it was just her imagination. Then she grabbed her phone and texted her friend, "Hey, I heard something downstairs." No reply. The humming stopped suddenly. Sophie waited, holding in breath in the silence. Suddenly, her phone buzzed her off guard. She turned around to check the message. It was from her friend. "Sorry, I fell asleep. Are you okay?" Sophie didn't answer immediately, just gazed at her phone, looking blankly unsure of what she ought to do. Was she overthinking this? It was probably just the house settling, the wind outside. Feeling still uneasy, Sophie rose and walked to the stairs. At the top of the staircase, she found something odd. The living room door was slightly open. She didn't remember leaving it that way. Sophie felt the air grow colder around her as she descended the stairs, slowly, cautiously, every creak of the wood underfoot making her jump. She reached the living room and peered inside. There was no one there. Everything seemed undisturbed. No signs of forced entry, no open windows. Sophie checked the front door and found it locked. Still, the feeling of being watched lingered. She flicked every switch in the house and then came back upstairs to her room, trying to shake the feeling off. Her head began to clear as she convinced herself that it had just been nerves. Nothing more. The house was old, and outside it was windy. The sounds can sometimes be strange. It was nothing to worry about. The clock on the wall ticked past midnight. Sophie glanced at it. It was a new year, yet the weight of the night's strange events hadn't fully lifted. She lay in bed, with eyes wide open in the dark, but she could hear nothing except the stillness of the house. There was no sound in the room, except for her breathing. It happened when Sophie woke up the following day to the buzzing of her phone. She rubbed off her eyes and checked on it. It was from her friend. "Hey, just woke up. Didn't hear back from you last night. You okay?" She browsed through her phone to try sending a reply, but found some weird thing. The timestamp for her own message she'd sent to her friend was 10:30 p.m. She had sent it hours before the noise even started. A shiver ran down Sophie's spine as she looked around the room, trying to make sense of it all. It was a small, subtle detail, but it gnawed at her. Something about last night didn't sit right. But the house was quiet. Everything was as it should be.